We're talking about this date, last 9/11, 2001. Okay? I was in a place called Karoi in northern Zimbabwe. Karoi, northern Zimbabwe. Hold it right there. Let me take you back. Because did you know that Zimbabwe actually means the house of stone?
The House of Stone.
Yes.
My GHC remind me it used to be called the Rhodes Island or what? Rhodesia.
It was called Rhodesia. But you're right, in a way.
Rhodesia.
Half right. There's this businessman who literally went from Cape all the way into the middle of the continent. His name was Cecil Rhodes. Cecil Rhodes. So he conquered the Cape. I mean, extracting everything from golds and diamonds, everything. When he got to what he called this huge country in the middle of Africa, he called it Rhodesia. Imagine naming a country after yourself, that narcissistic attitude.
Rhodesia.
Rhodesia. So it was divided into two. Northern Rhodesia, which became Zambia, and Southern Rhodesia, which on April 18th, 1980, became Zimbabwe.
Okay.
Bob Marley was one of the artists who performed
At the independence.
Yes, and he had come via Nairobi on his way to Harare.
Okay.
Harare, which had newly been named because the capital before, when it was under Southern Rhodesia, it was called Salisbury. Salisbury was the capital of Rhodesia, Southern Rhodesia then, became Harare. First president, a bespectacled, young, smart former teacher with several PhDs at the time, spoke English like an Englishman. He was considered breath of fresh air in 1980s Africa because, let's face it, the Mobutus were there, the Omar Bongos were there, the Hufwe Boignyis. Africa was littered with dictators. And then this guy comes in. Now, when he came in, just like the Lancaster Agreement in Kenya, the British had said, you know what, we're going to give you money so that any farmer who wants to leave Zimbabwe and wants to sell his farm will be willing buyer, willing seller. They did that in Kenya. It worked to a large extent. In Zimbabwe, they told them, wait a minute, we don't have the money right now. Talk to us in 10 years. This is 1980, right? Talk to us in 10 years. We'll give you the money. You can give the farmers willing buyer, willing seller. 10 years later, the government in the UK had changed. It had become more conservative. Mugabe tells them, hey, listen, remember you guys promised this money? They said, what money? They said, give us 10 more years. In the meantime, this is 1990, right? Mandela is released from prison in 1990. He becomes the darling of the continent. Mugabe takes a step back. Now nobody's talking about Mugabe anymore. They all talk about Mandela next door. He's the hero. South Africa, 1994, independence. 2000, this is 10 years later, and 20 years after independence, Mugabe is pissed off. He says, where's our money? These white farmers are taking over the country. They own all of Zimbabwe. The black people are feeling disenfranchised. What do we do? The British said, listen, Tony Blair then, we don't have the money right now. And that's when the farming invasions happened. The first farming invasion was in April 2000. I was there, outside Harare. In total, 12 white farmers were killed that year. 12. Because they owned huge tracts of 50, 100,000 acres. Huge tracts of land. So then it continued from 2000 now. These so-called war veterans who were like maybe 18, 20 years old. You can't have a war veteran at 20. That's what they call themselves. 2000, 2001. Now that's when we arrive in Karoi for another farm invasion we had heard about. 220 kilometers north of Harare. We're there. And we're covering this farm invasion, and the police come and arrest us. And we have the permits and everything, accreditation. They arrest us, they take us to the police station, and we're filming all of this undercover. Right? They're filming the whole police station stuff. So we're there for a couple of hours. Finally, they release us after they find out who we are, and we're driving to Harare. 220 kilometers, right? We're going at breakneck speed because I'm telling myself I have the story of the day today. We went to a farm invasion. We caught these guys, raiding a farm, and then we were arrested by police, taken to the police station. That whole thing was a great story. My phone was off, so I was excited. Get to Harare, walk into my hotel room. I'm calling Atlanta now. I say, hey man, listen, I've got the story of the day. We got arrested. This is what happened. The farm invasions are continuing, blah, blah. The guy says, Jeff, stop. Are you near a television? I said, did you hear what I just said? I've got the story of the most incredible story out here. The guy said, are you near a television? Switch it on. So I switched on just in time to see the second plane slam into tower number 2. And I said, oh my goodness, what movie is this I'm watching? Let me switch to CNN. Sure enough, it was CNN that I was watching as the plane slammed into the tower.
What?
And the guy said, Jeff, we're under attack. Click. Put down the phone. Can you imagine?
What?
And for the next, I guess, days, weeks, months, we were glued to the television. 9/11, this day, 16 years ago. That was my story a day. Jalas, you were talking about, I'm telling you, man. All available on Through My African Eyes at any bookshop near you.
It's the Hot Breakfast with Jeff and Jelano.